Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Welcome back to the Hourglass Podcast. Today I've got my long-time friend George. Do you want to say hello, George?
All right.
Before we get into the podcast, I wanted to say thank you for the continued support on the first episode. Today we're going to be talking about creepy true stories. George?
Yes. Creepy true stories. A lot of mine are linked with interesting crime / creepy stories that the story seems to be going one way, but then there's a giant twist and it's like, oh, no way.
Big plot twist.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear something that's weird?
Always. Every
podcast I've recorded so far has been on a Thursday.
Oh, that's a bit spooky.
And I'm not meant to as well. It sounds really pointless, but there you go. I want to start
Thursday's prime time
podcast time. I'm going to start off with a short one. This one, are you ready?
Yeah. How are we doing this? Are we rating each one?
Can do, yeah. Out of 10, preferably. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, so, first one. In Tokyo, 2008, a man lives on his own. Now, he felt a strange presence in his house, and he noticed, for some reason, his food was going missing, and he always was second-guessing what was in his fridge and his cupboards. So he decided to set up a camera to decide if he was going crazy or not. Do you know what I mean? And what he found, it was late at night, and he went to bed. And this is in Tokyo, so they've got incredible technology all over the house and stuff. And he set up these cameras, and it was live streaming to his phone. And it was around 2 or 3 a.m. And he checked the footage because he heard a disturbance. And he checked the footage, and what he found was have you watched? What's that film called Rings, where the creepy girl comes out?
Oh, comes out the TV.
Yeah. He saw a figure like her standing over the sink, having a drink out of the tap.
That's spooky.
Could you even imagine? I reckon in England you wouldn't set anything up. You'd go downstairs and be like, "What's going on?" And just seeing a Rings figure kind of woman standing there.
I got no words for that. That's proper spooky.
But the thing is, because I imagine it wasn't on HD. It was at night at 2 a.m. So I imagine the picture was quite grainy and that kind of thing and dark.
Yeah.
So, but apparently she made use of the facilities, and she was really well kept. She was groomed and stuff.
So was this more than once he caught her on film, or did he just do something when he saw her the first time?
No, this was the first time, and he called the police, and when they got up there, they discovered that there was bed linen and mattresses in the attic.
They've been living in his house rent-free.
Yeah, rent-free, mate. Yeah, that's what they found, and they were shocked, and they said she was clean and tidy, and she was well kept, and she made use of the facilities while he was at work.
How old's this person? Is it an old person that she's kind of just abused because she didn't think he'd do anything?
I'm not sure. Where did the research? It didn't say how old he was, but she was 58.
Oh, that's crazy. I expected a young person.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about that, you'd expect a younger person who's perhaps didn't do well at school or something, and they've just got nowhere to live.
Or, pardon me words, I'll say a nice word, a homeless person.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something
that's what she was.
A young person off the streets, stuff kind of thing. But that's crazy. 58. I did not expect that for the age.
And did I mention how long it was for?
No.
A full year.
He lived in his house for a full year and he didn't know.
In his attic, a full year, and he didn't know. Is there a cupboard, or do you not check your attic for a full year though?
It was just stealing his food every day. I had no idea.
He was coming back with he's food for the week, and it was going missing. He was buying his food, and it was his meals are gone, and cans and
for a whole year, and he never thought to check around his house.
That's what I mean. Is there not a cupboard, or you check the attic for Christmas and stuff? You just check everywhere, don't you? It's kind of just what you do.
Yeah.
Could you imagine going downstairs and seeing that though, or like as you're coming down, or going up to Christmas to get the decorations out?
It's just one of them things that it just sounds unrealistic to happen. But for that to be a true story, and to not know someone's been living in your house for a whole year, is mental.
The ironic thing is, she actually got charged and sent to prison for breaking and entering.
Breaking and entering. She paid. The other thing to do next was help pay the mortgage.
Exactly, but she was sent to prison for breaking and entering.
Did you ever get that weird vibe though in your house that someone's there?
Oh, always. I remember. You linked me to a good story. I was left at home for a week, and I heard this story a while ago, and it's stuck with me. And I went into the bathroom, and there was an old radio in the bathroom that had fell behind the bin, and you couldn't see it; it wasn't visible, but it was playing. It was really crackling. It was playing the radio, and it sounded like someone was in the attic. And I had this story in my head when that was happening.
So, because my room, you'd know this, it leads to the attic.
Oh yeah, it does. Oh my god.
So, mate, when it's like raining or windy and you hear noises and like my door blows, I'm like, nah, mate. If someone's living up there, they can stay, mate. So I'll leave the plate of food for them. Right.
Exactly. You'd be terrified. That would be awful. But at the same time, though, I do feel sorry she had to go to that extreme to feel safe. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's one of them. Sometimes you feel sorry for people in certain situations, but then you got to level with they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's why she obviously got taken away, I guess. Yeah, but that's
in a weird way she found her home.
Yeah,
behind bars.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was I've heard that story a while ago, and it's just always stuck with me. How mental when I first heard it. What would you rate that one?
For what scale? Just how interesting the story is.
How intriguing it is.
Or scary.
Yeah, scary. Let's go scary then. Yeah.
Intriguing. I'll give it a good 7, because I think sometimes you can relate your own fear of noises to that. Yeah. You hear random noise in your house. And scary, probably an 8, just for the fact that you're hearing the same noise for a year and you do nothing about it.
Exactly.
You must have been really scared in that situation to not do anything for a year.
Imagine all the best flavours of crisps are just disappearing from your cupboard, and you're like...
You just got ready salted and salt and vinegar left.
Quite like salt and vinegar, to be honest. But
that's the real crime. That's the real crime.
How would you rate it on the level of creepiness then? Because I think that's like a 9.
Creepiness? Yeah, an 8. Creepiness.
Yeah.
Okay. So mine isn't as creepy. It's just so interesting.
Okay.
And the twist, it's like, when I say the story, the twist is going to become very visible because it's quite a short, straight to the point story.
Okay.
But anyway, so there's an American police officer.
Yeah.
He was a lieutenant called Charles Joseph Glowinski.
Okay.
But he was called G.I. Joe for his nickname.
Okay.
So we all know G.I. Joe is like this high, remarked person, a lot of respect.
Yeah.
That's why he was nicknamed G.I. Joe, because he was quite a respectable guy. So he's 1 month away from his retirement when he called for backup during a routine patrol near Fox Lake. So that's in Illinois, just so you know. On the police radio, he stated that he's in hot pursuit of 3 suspicious unidentified men.
Right.
When his colleagues arrived to the scene, they found G.I. Joe lying dead on the ground in the woods. He had been shot twice, once in his bulletproof vest and once in his head. The officer was buried with full honours, and G.I. Joe was held as a local hero. So all the stuff he'd done for the community, he was a very well-regarded guy. He was very loved in that community. So the FBI investigated it, and they started to see things with his personal life being a bit shady.
Okay.
His personal file suggested a lot of acts of misconduct that were pushed aside. And a word had spread that he feared an upcoming audit. So basically, with all the misconduct, he was going to get reviewed by his bosses, basically, for all the things he'd been doing wrong.
Okay.
And the FBI discovered that he had been embezzling money out of the police youth program for years. So he'd been stealing money from the police for the youth police coming up that no one knew about.
Which is a big no-no.
Yeah, it's stealing.
Disgusting. Anyway.
It turned out that G.I. Joe himself tried to hire a gang member to kill him before the dark side of himself was revealed.
Oh my God.
However, it didn't go to plan, and the forensic team showed that 2 shots came from very close distance, just about an arm's length. The authorities then realised there was no real hot pursuit of the criminals, and G.I. Joe in fact committed suicide before all his dirty deeds were discovered by the people in the community.
Oh my God.
And that's the story.
That kind of brings you back to, you know, the line in Batman. He goes, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
The villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like, it fits perfectly for that story. That's incredible.
I'd also like to say I butchered his last name, so cheers for that one. But yeah, when reading it, I just thought about how it's literally hero to zero, and he thought of like trying to protect his legacy before ultimately killing himself. He wanted to protect his legacy of, I was going to chase this gang down on my own. Really, he was offing himself because he knew he was in trouble.
It's like he's trying to write his own story in a way.
Yeah. Protect his legacy.
And the ironic part about that is it fell because of what he's done anyway. Like,
yeah.
They were always going to find that out. Quite clever though, the way he's done that.
Yeah, so like a normal patrol turned into him saying he was chasing 3 people to be found dead, when really he went to the bushes and shot himself. I find it really weird that he shot himself in his bulletproof vest. So you can also argue that it's kind of a mystery. Maybe he didn't kill himself as well. But you could also argue that of, why would he shoot himself in his bulletproof vest first?
Yeah, maybe he wasn't.
If he knew it was bulletproof.
You'd hope he would. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you put this on, I'm safe
I feel like you could really dive into that one and think he'd know that he had a bulletproof vest on, so why would he shoot himself there?
Maybe do you reckon he was reluctant to do it if he did do it?
Yeah, maybe he was testing the waters. I don't know.
It's kind of like that.
It's an interesting one.
That human instinct level, because if you don't want to die, you're going to do everything you don't to do not to be able to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's that survival instinct.
Or maybe he did it to seem like it was a gang. Like, I shoot myself in the vest first to seem like it was someone else who didn't know I had it on. Like reverse psychology.
Yeah, that's plausible. Yeah, that could be. Did you say these gang? So they didn't find. Did they find these men?
No, he tried to hire one. He didn't actually do it.
Oh, okay. Damn. It would have been a lot more convincing if he did hire one, though. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Imagine you're paying someone to kill you when they think they're killing someone for you.
Yeah.
So he would never have. I don't know how these things work. So I'm never going to need to hire a gang member. But I wonder, with the thing of, did he pay him before or after? Like, I called him up, said, I'll pay this amount of money if you kill this person for me. So we got him to kill him, so we didn't have to pay him.
Oh my God, yeah. There are a lot of twists and turns in this one. Right.
It's not really creepy. It's more just...
It's definitely intriguing, though.
It's intriguing to think that's how this man wanted to go out.
I think it is creepy in a sense that that's how he thought, and he believed he could write his own story out like that in such an horrific way.
Yeah, he tried to give himself the hero send-off.
Yeah, he did, yeah. And that was ultimately his demise, I suppose. The level of intrigue, I give that an 8. I'm intrigued. Creepy, I give it a 6.
Yeah, that's steady.
Yeah, but
a low score for creepy.
The way he was fought, that's definitely creepy. That's mental.
Yeah, it's more of his mindset that was creepy. That he was going to be found out in a upcoming audit, so he decided to plan this whole gang. People doing stuff. He had to pursue it, getting everyone to come just in time to to not see him die, but to find him dead. That's just a really weird mindset to be in.
For some reason, I imagine his story in the snow. I don't know why.
Oh, I get that vibe. But I think that's because, seeing the red marks in the snow makes it more eerie.
With a bulletproof vest off to the side.
Oh.
In before we find out Illinois is very hot and it never had snow ever. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I'm not good with the States. I don't know where it is, east or west, I don't know.
Speaking of incredible mindsets, I want to tell you about the disappearance of D.B. Cooper.
D.B. Cooper?
And it's actually an Easter egg in the Prison Break series, this is.
Oh. So that's interesting. I'm intrigued in this.
On one afternoon, on November the 24th, 1971, a middle-aged man carrying a briefcase walked into Portland International Airport and purchased a one-way ticket to Seattle. This man identified himself as Dan Cooper. There were 36 passengers on board and 6 crew members. This was Flight 305. He made himself comfortable on the right side of the cabin, on the last row in the middle seat. There was no one either side of him. And he ordered a drink and had a smoke because this was in the 70s, so you could do all that stuff back then.
I could still smoke now if I want.
Not on a plane, though. Do you know what I mean? You get out of the plane, mate, you're gone. You can still drink on a plane. That's one positive.
Yeah, you can still drink on a plane.
Once I was in the air, he handed a note to the flight attendant that read, "I have a bomb here, and I would like you to sit next to me." So he was in a perfect position because there was no one next to him. And he could speak to the flight attendant. And he's shown 8 sticks of dynamite in a briefcase. And the note read, his simple demands were $200,000 by 5 p.m. in cash, 2 back and 2 front parachutes. So he didn't actually get a hostage, but this was his thinking. He thought he could trick them out and play them even more because he had a hostage basically, and they would be more suggestible.
Yeah.
And he needed a fuel truck ready to land. And for an hour and a half, they circled above Seattle to get the demands ready. And a local bank gave him the 200,000, and I think the police gave him 50,000. And then a local parachute company gave them the parachutes. They were circling above Seattle, and then 2 hours past the scheduled arrival, they landed in the dark. It was very late. The money, the parachutes were given, and they were about to refuel. D.B. Cooper, or Dan Cooper, allowed the passengers to all get off. They didn't even know until a couple hours after, and allowed the 2 flight attendants to go. So there are now 4 crew members. So what happened was they flew to. He told them to fly to Mexico City. Now 5 hours after they're in the air, he told the flight attendant to go to the cabin. He released the back staircase that in those days there wasn't advanced as we have now, so it was just a back staircase.
Yeah.
That came out of the plane. 5 minutes after they was in the air, he jumped out and he was never seen again.
Oh, well, I don't like the men's.
Well, do you know in Prison Break, the old guy who dies as before they leave?
Yeah.
He's D.B. Cooper. This is what he was based on.
Oh, I know what you're on about. Yeah, I know what you're on about now. Okay.
But supposedly back then he was dressed as, like Men in Black. He had a full suit on, trench coat, black shoes, black...
So this definitely happened?
Yeah, this actually happened.
Oh, that's mental. What a guy.
They never found him.
I mean, I say what a guy. I mean, he never hurt anyone, I guess. But what a guy.
And he landed in... The way they couldn't find him, because he landed in... Well, when it was pitch black, so they had to look through it all night. And there was 2 fighter jets, because it was obviously deemed quite high. The 2 fighter jets followed him. And he's in pitch black, so he told them to turn all the lights off. And he just disappeared into the darkness with $200,000.
Never to be seen again.
Never. The only thing they found was, which is mental, a decade after, they found $5,000 miles away, buried in weird cement. That's the only thing they found.
With like the number print on it.
Yeah, this
to like verify that it was that money.
Yeah, they had the serial numbers on the cash.
Yeah. I was looking for serial numbers.
Yeah, they have special precautions for this kind of job. and they could verify it, and that's the only money they ever found.
And he hid $5,000 away.
That was it, and he took the rest.
Oh, that's weird.
The 195 remaining, they never
been found.
Never been found. He was gone.
Or never been looked for to an extent.
Well, I suppose
Surely he must have spent it.
You'd hope, wouldn't you? You'd imagine so.
Or he was just proving a point that he could do that. Like probably like looking for the thrill. I could just prove that I could take that money if I wanted to, never to spend it.
But the way he was dressed, it certainly looked that way. I mean, what a mind to be able to pull that off. Do you know what I mean? At one point, he said to the pilot, he went, "Let's get this show on the road." Like as simple as that. Apparently, anyway.
Like he was looking for like it's more of an attention thing.
Yeah, like he was calm about it. Like this was his plan. This is what he's always going to do.
He wanted his name to be known.
Exactly.
And it was. It's on Prison Break.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was known.
I mean, how clever have you got to be to pull that off?
Very clever.
How is it not found? 195.
Because there's so many ways that could go wrong as well.
Oh yeah. Well, the fact he wasn't allowed to, because he asked for certain demands when they refueled the tank and then set off to Mexico City. There wasn't allowed. He told them to position the wings a certain way, which they did, but he also told them to put the back staircase out so he could jump out. But they only did that mid-flight. So yeah.
I wonder why you told him about the wings. That's weird.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he had to be below 10,000 feet so he could jump out, and probably so it was more controlled jump.
Okay.
But yeah,
that's weird. That's mental, man.
Yeah, I heard about this before, and then when he said DB Cooper in Prison Break, I was like, that is mental. That's an incredible Easter egg.
There was one I was going to do for this, but I decided not to. It's about the Axeman. Don't know if you've ever heard of the Axeman.
Oh, I
can't
have,
remember the
yeah.
details right now. But when I read on it, I was like, oh, it sounds proper familiar to me. And as I kept reading, it later said a modernised version is shown in American Horror Story Season 3. I was like, oh, that's why I know this, because it's half true in American Horror Story. Because obviously American Horror Story is a made-up show.
Yeah.
But they used his the Axeman's character kind of thing to implement something into that program. Wasn't as accurate as the real life stories, but he was implemented into the show. So when I was reading, I was like, oh, I know this.
Could you imagine this trying to be pulled off today? I don't think you'd be able to.
You wouldn't get away with it now.
You wouldn't get the dynamite in, would you, at all?
You'd use something else. You'd use modernised bombs, wouldn't you, really?
Yeah.
But more to the extent of, I just think there's more precaution these days to stop that. But you never know. We've had like, was it shoe bombs we had at one point in the aeroplanes? People had bombs in the shoes. That's why we take our shoes off now.
Yeah, all clever ways to do, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just found that story really incredible. The fact he was never found, and he found $5,000 in the serial number. Apparently, but they said it was buried because the elastic bands they used, because it was a decade. After 1 year, those bands have eroded.
Yeah.
So apparently he used like a special cement just to keep the 5K somewhere. So do you reckon he's gone around hiding the money until it's like 15 years gone and then he spent it all?
Possibly, yeah. And they just found one of the places he's hid it.
Yeah, just by because I think it was some random kid fishing near where he buried it. So
did they go look for the rest in that lake and didn't find it?
Yeah, and they couldn't find any anywhere.
That's mad. But mad guy.
It's the way he was dressed. He was like dressed in like he had like shades on, his suit. Like he was ready to do this. Like he was going for it, and he did it. Never seen again.
I love those stories. Never seen again.
What would you rate that?
The scale of creepiness, I would rank very low.
Yeah.
I'm not very creeped out. I'm more intrigued.
Yeah.
So creepiness, I'd go, don't know, 2.
Brilliant.
Intrigued, probably about a 9, because I always love it when it's like never to be seen again. Never found the money except for $5,000. Love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he was gone.
And yeah, scariness is probably low again because it's not really scary. No one was dead. So, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to do this one last, but because you nailed that one out, I'm going to say this one now.
Okay.
This one is, I love it, but I shouldn't love it because people died. So, in June,
Yeah.
in 1965,
Okay.
the police department in Texas received a call from a man called Marvin Martin, well, creative name,
What a lovely name.
asking for a welfare check on his aunt and uncle, Fred Rogers and Edwina Rogers. It was an old couple. I think Fred was 81, Edwina was 79. They'd not been answering their phone for a couple of days, so they was getting quite worried. So 2 police officers knocked on the couple's front door in their home in Montreal. There was no response, so they ended up knocking the door down. Obviously, because they'd not been heard from a few days, they needed to check what was inside.
Right, yeah.
There was no sign of the couple, despite there being food on the table. One of the officers noticed a strong odour coming from the fridge.
Oh, no.
He opened it and saw various cuts of meat, which he believed to be hog's meat. The officer was shocked when he suddenly saw 2 heads in the fridge. Let's see where this is going. Fred had been beaten with a claw hammer and his eyes and genitalia removed.
Lovely.
Meanwhile, Edwina had been shot in the head. After they were dead, the killer dragged their bodies to the master bedroom upstairs. The killer then drained their blood and chopped them into pieces to place the cuts into the fridge.
Oh.
The authorities believed the killer had a knowledge in autonomy, as the body had been neatly cut. So they could tell this person sort of knew what they was doing from how precise and how accurate the cuts were. Experts say Fred and Edwina had been murdered 3 days before being found.
Right.
Despite the gruesome murders, the house had been thoroughly cleaned. Several of the couple's organs were later found in nearby sewers as the killer tried to flush them down the toilet. The couple's 34-year-old son was their immediate suspect. He lived in the attic and could not be found after the discovery of the bodies. So the backstory on the son now. So this is where it all goes. Wow. So Charles was said to be particularly intelligent. He spoke several languages.
Yeah.
And he had a degree in nuclear physics. He was a pilot in the US Navy during World War II and served in the Office of Naval Intelligence.
Damn.
He all of a sudden quit his job of 9 years in 1957, which was 7 years before the murder. 7 years? Did I get that year? Several years before the murder.
Yeah, okay.
I think I got the numbers wrong there. I think it was 8 years. 8 years. During the 50s, Charles joined the Civil Air Patrol, where he was believed to have met Dave Frere, who was a man being accused of the plot to assassinate John F. Kennedy.
Damn.
Though Charles moved with his parents after quitting his job, he rarely saw them. He and his parents would communicate by passing notes under his door. He wouldn't talk to his parents. Most of the neighbours had no idea he lived there. Some were not even aware they had a child. The few that knew Charles's presence said he usually left home before dawn and only returned at dark. No one knows to this day what Charles did in the day. He quit his job, but he left at dawn and returned after dark. No one knows what he did. Authorities found bloodied keyhole saw in his attic bedroom. It was most likely to use to cut the bodies. A national-wide manhunt for Charles was launched, but he was never heard from again.
Oh my god.
Craig and so people wrote a book on it then. So years later, they wrote a book, and the people that wrote a book believe Charles was one of the men who assassinated John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
And they accused him of impersonating Lee Harvey Oswald in Mexico City. They believe Charles was one of the famous 3 tramps. So there's 3 people arrested as tramps that day that were a conspiracy to be a part of the assassination, along with the actor Woody Harrelson's father. He was one of the 3 tramps. If you didn't know, that's interesting little fact.
Oh my, yeah.
Moreover, they claim the reason Charles killed his parents was that they would have been listening and keeping track of his calls, possibly knowing too much information about his secret meetings. and apparently Charles was never found again, but reports suggest that he died several years later in South America.
That's incredible.
So it's all true until the conspiracy about him being a part of the JFK conspiracy.
Yeah, we'll get to the JFK a bit in a sec, because I reckon I could put some stuff to that, but that is incredible.
And it's called the Icebox Murders.
The Icebox Murders. That is definitely creepy and scary. What the hell? That's incredible. He definitely did something to his parents. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the reports are that they couldn't find him and he was the only suspect. So I think the matter was that he was the person who'd done it. They could just never find him after that.
And the man of that genius, he's done something that he would stay and cooperate. Do you know what I mean? He would have helped out. It's a bit suspect that he left. That's mental. Oh my god.
But obviously, talking about this, I'm pretty sure, if my knowledge serves correct, JFK died 2 years before that murder. Yeah, so JFK died 1963, and the parents were killed in 65. So it then offers the fact that what would he have been talking about 2 years later?
Yeah, exactly.
For that to be the reason that he killed his parents.
I say from my knowledge, I don't really know much about the Three Tramps, but when the FBI talked about Lee Harvey Oswald, they said there was no conspiracy. They said he'd done it, but weirdly he doesn't remember doing it at all. I don't know whether that's like a psychological coping mechanism or something of that nature, but yeah, he doesn't remember it, and the FBI say it was definitely him.
It's just an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's got so many layers.
I thought it was just, when I read it, I was like, oh, this has got so much layers to it.
What's the motivation behind killing the parents, though? Did it ever say anything?
No. It literally says the only possible, because they never found him, so they can never prove why he did it, or even if he did it.
Yeah.
They just think that was the person who did it. There's no proof, but the people who wrote a book about it years later in the 90s suggested it was because they knew what he was doing. Because it was all that time in the day that no one knows what he was doing, because he quit his job 8 years before the murder. But for them 8 years, his parents didn't even know what he was doing.
It's like a gap in the timeline kind of thing. No one knows, put him in places either.
It's crazy.
For ratings wise, mate, I'm going to give that goes to 888 for me. That's incredible. The link, I think the link to the JFK situation as well puts it on high for me.
Yeah, it just entices it more, doesn't it?
And the fact he was never found, I can believe that though, because the level of intellect he's got sounds another level.
And to have all that intellect and then apparently just quit his job and not work, move back into his parents' house, not ever to buy a house, rent a house. It's like, why?
Doesn't look good for him.
Why? Yeah. But apparently he's dead anyway. Apparently he's dead.
I'd like to know.
So we might never know.
Yeah, I'd like to know the motivation behind that, because he sounds like an expert at doing that kind of thing anyway. It's not even been proved.
Yeah, exactly.
What a story. Right, I've got one that's a bit... Actually, no, I'm going to start with a smaller one first. So, Rubin Nasamoa, a teenager from Atlanta, has made international headlines after waking up from a coma, speaking fluent Spanish, a language he had only basic understanding of before. As well as this, the 16-year-old said he struggled to speak English after suffering concussion during a football game. After he tried, he said it felt like he was going to have a seizure. While incredibly rare cases like Rubin's, where someone wakes up speaking a language they didn't think they knew, are not unheard of. There was, for example, a man who spoke Welsh after a stroke, despite not having been to Wales for 70 years. Or take this Australian man who came to after a car crash speaking Mandarin, a language he had learnt at school but was never fluent in. I think that's another level. So he's...
Oh, okay, yeah. I thought there was more to this, but yeah, I thought it was going to probably creep me out. like someone had visited him in the coma speaking Spanish to her. I thought that was where it was going. Someone's been whispering sweet Spanish in her ear.
I do
that's
find
mental.
I do find it's a level of creepy, but it's so bizarre. Like, imagine.
So did she know basic Spanish beforehand, but then she woke up speaking fluent Spanish?
No, it was. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
The guy. It's a guy.
Oh, okay.
So he suffered a concussion during a football game, woke up from a coma, and could speak fluent Spanish. And he's an American boy.
It just questions how your brain works.
It really does, doesn't it?
There's always like been them like theories that people try and test that you only use like 20% of your brain or something, or you use a very low percentage of your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And to wake up from a coma and never like and be able to speak fluent Spanish. Like, was he speaking? So the same person had a seizure when he thought he was going to have a seizure every time he tried to speak English?
Yeah.
Like his brain was telling him not to speak English.
Yeah. So when he was speaking Spanish,
oh, that's mental, man.
But in his mind, he knew he wasn't meant to be doing this. So when he tried to speak English, he felt like he was going to have a seizure.
I've always wondered about this. Like, I'm not bilingual. I've never learned to language properly, like, other than like, you know, we all did a language at school that we didn't really pay attention to. Sorry if you did pay attention to a language at school. Unless you use it now, you wasted your own time. But do you like people who learn, say, if you're French and you learn English, what voice is in your head? Oh. Your French voice or your English voice? Because obviously, I'm not saying I have voices in my head, but when I have like ideas in my head and I start to think them through, I imagine it in English because I only know one language. But I wonder if people know more than one language, how they think about things in that.
You'd imagine it's the home dialect. Do you know what I mean? Where you were born, you'd think.
Or what? How did? Oh, I don't want to speak about this. How do like deaf people process things with thinking?
Oh,
like how like interesting things how you see people's brains operate.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, yeah.
To wake up from a coma and speak fluent Spanish, just that child, was it 16?
Yeah.
That child's brain is all over the place. He tried to speak English but couldn't.
Apparently, it's called foreign accent syndrome.
And it's not common, but it's not been unheard of.
No.
You said there's other cases, didn't you?
Yeah.
There was a guy who's never been to Wales for 70 years, but started speaking Welsh again.
Yeah. And the guy, the Australian man, this is the maddest one. I'm pretty sure, isn't Mandarin quite a complex language? Like,
it's very complex, but it's the most spoken language.
And this Australian man could never say it. Well, he learnt it at school, and he's fluent, and now he's fluent in it because he had a car crash, and now he woke up.
More people in the world speak Mandarin. Mandarin? Is that right? Mandarin, more than English. It's my spoken language.
But no, I saw that story, and I was like, it's just incredibly fascinating. Like, imagine if I woke up and started speaking French, and you were like, "What's going on here?" Then, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very. If you go to like the separate part of this of like the speaking languages, it must be just your brain's like gone into overdrive to wake up and say, I don't know, hola instead of hello.
Yeah, I think
like unnaturally.
What I'd say overdrive is the fact that you know what you're doing. You know you shouldn't be doing it, but you're doing it because that's what you know. It'd
be interesting to like know if he was trying to speak English and it was just coming out of Spanish.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to get to. Like, in his head, was he thinking of English words but yet saying Spanish words?
But the fact he was trying to speak English and then he felt like he was going to have a seizure. Oh my!
That's a mad one.
That's incredible. The fact that's even possible is ridiculous. But yeah, that's apparently foreign accent syndrome. It's possible.
That's crazy. So I don't know English as a language. I know a bit of sign language, but I would never imagine to wake up one day, coma or anything, and start speaking French. So that is proper creepy and very intriguing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a short story, but it's real. I would be creeped out if that happened to my friend or family or definitely me. I'd freak out.
Definitely.
What would you give that on the old ratings?
Creepiness, I'd say a good 7 now, because imagine if you knew, like, and put it in your own shoes, imagine if you knew that person was you, you'd freak the hell out, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. It'd be crazy. Intriguing, I'll give it a 6, purely for the fact that there's a lot of questions I have that I don't know the answers to now, because you've enticed me with that short story. So I'm very intrigued, but I feel like there's a lot of parts that I want to know the answers to. So to get it higher, I'd need to know the answers.
Hopefully they're out there.
Because that was short, do you want to go again? Or do you want me to say what my final one?
I'll give you another one. This one's off the top of my head. I've heard this somewhere and it stayed in with me. I couldn't find it anywhere. I tried to research it. So there was this guy, and if I remember correctly, it was in America. He woke up, he had no recollection of who he was, he had no ID on him, had nothing but jeans and a t-shirt and shoes. He had no recollection of where he'd been, what he'd done, who he was, any of his friends or family, anything. His memory was wiped.
So he had severe amnesia.
Yeah. He woke up...
Was that amnesia? It was amnesia.
Yeah. Good old Skepta song. Woke up behind a restaurant, went into the restaurant and asked the woman what was going on. Basically, obviously, she didn't know. And when they tried to figure out who he was, he went to the police station and they put out advertisements like, do you know this guy? And he was never claimed by anyone.
He was never claimed?
No, so he had no family or friends. It was quite upsetting, really, but he had no family or friends. He didn't know who he was, and that was how it was left.
And the hospital had no recollection of why he was there?
No.
That's spooky.
I couldn't find out. It's definitely true. I couldn't find out if he had tests or anything because I couldn't find the story. But he literally woke up, had no recollection of anything, didn't know who he was, no family or friends, nothing.
And the people at the hospital themselves couldn't even tell him why he was there or anything?
I couldn't. No, apparently they just saw like he couldn't remember anything. That was it.
That's mad.
Wouldn't you be upset though that you have no family or friends to like?
Oh yeah, that's mental.
Like surely, like they would definitely. If it happened to anyone I know, I'm pretty confident you'd be like, "Yeah, we know you. Sorry about the memory loss kind of thing."
He was definitely working for the FBI.
That's what I mean. You just left them.
Men in Black. That was the Men in Black. That was.
I mean, if you believe in aliens.
Have you seen that UFO video going viral recently?
Yeah, that
apparently was released by the government.
Yeah, that's worrying.
Oh.
Has Elvis's...
What a year this has been.
I know. Has Elvis's death record been released yet?
I have no idea, mate. I didn't know he was dead. That's a joke. It's a joke.
But I suppose...
That's something didn't he die in the toilet?
Yeah, that's what they say, but his death records are apparently officially released in the next 10 years. But yeah,
that's interesting.
When I researched it, I'm pretty sure it's soon. I'm thinking 21. It might be 21. 2021.
What a year. This is I was something to look forward to anyway.
Yeah, that's in a way. But yeah, that's
get finished with 2020.
Get it going. What do you think about that story then? Because I thought that was incredible, and that's actually true as well.
It's enticing. It's very interesting.
Could you imagine?
I'd love to know if he was claimed at any point, but I'm assuming he wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think he was, but wherever I heard it, I think I've heard it again, and apparently he was, in fact, picked up by someone. But he wasn't. He was like one person. That was it. But imagine if you're just a random person, say, "Oh yeah, I know you," and he's like trying to like mess him about and stuff, and "Oh, you love wearing this and eating this," and he actually doesn't.
That's mental.
Just being left with no recollection of anything. Oh,
I couldn't fathom that.
That would break you, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, heard that somewhere.
So, we go on to mine. My last one.
Just a big one.
No, I did the big one just.
Right. Okay.
I just wanted to put some juice in there after your juicy one.
Okay, I've got a big one to end it, so we should be all right.
A Killer Calls. That's what this one's called, and it's unsolved to this day. So, It's about a woman called Dorothy Jane Scott.
Decent.
So, she was a single mother of a 4-year-old son named Sean. She had been receiving threatening calls at her auntie's home at Stanton, California, where where her son lived with her auntie, basically.
Okay.
Apparently, a bloke was professing his love for her, making romantic gestures and a lot of stuff, but she didn't know the person. A lot of the time, he would get threatening, saying he was going to harm her in unspeakable ways.
Right.
So she'd get continuous calls from this person, never knew who it was. It would get day to day. He would tell her he's going to wait outside for her, everything. There was one instance where he called, recounting details of her day-to-day life. Like, he phoned her and said, you did this today, you did that, you did this. There was another one where he told her to go outside because he'd left something for her, and she went to her car and she found a single dead rose placed on her windshield. The calls continued to happen and her family got really unsettled by it. But they didn't know what to do because they had no proof of who it was, so they never reported it.
Yeah.
And then, on the night of May 28th, 1980, she dropped her son off at her parents so she could attend a staff meeting where she worked. During the meeting, she noticed her co-worker didn't look very well. She offered to take him to hospital, and he took her offer, and another co-worker went with them.
Okay.
On the way, she stopped off at her parents to check on her son and tell them what she was doing. She switched her scarf from black to red, which is quite important for some reason, as we'll lead on to. At the hospital, it was determined that her co-worker had been bitten by a black widow spider. He was treated whilst the woman and another co-worker waited around until they was ready to go home. According to one of the co-workers, the woman never left his side during the evening. When he was released, she went to go fetch her car from the parking lot while the man waited for his prescription. When Scott didn't return right away, her two co-workers walked to the parking lot where they saw her car speeding away. Initially, I can't say that word. Initially,
yeah,
they assumed that there'd been an emergency with her son, but they still hadn't heard of him a few hours later, so they reported her missing. Around 4:30 the following morning, her car, a white Toyota station wagon, was found in an alley in St. Anna, about 10 miles from the hospital. The car had been set ablaze, but no one was inside. A week later, her mother, Vera, received the first call. "Are you related to Dorothy Scott?" the voice said on the phone. When Vera said she was, the caller simply added, "I've got her," and hung up. The first call that Scott's parent received wouldn't be the last. So the police installed a voice recorder at their residence. They were never able to trace the call, as the caller never stayed on the line for longer than a short time. Shortly after the mysterious calls began, Scott's father approached the Santa Ana Register, asking them to run the story of their missing daughter. So that's the newspaper. They ran the story on June 12, 1980, and the same day, the paper's editor received an anonymous phone call claiming to be Dorothy Scott's killer, claiming that she was my love. The caller said, "I caught her cheating with another man. She denied having someone else, so I killed her." The caller provided details that had not been included in the newspaper story, such as the colour of Scott's scar and the fact her co-worker had been bitten by a black widow spider. The caller also claimed that Scott had called him that night at the hospital, claiming she knew that she was going to meet him, but we don't think that's true. So, during the time she was still missing, nearly 2 months later, in 1984, construction workers would discover charred bones near St. Anna Cannon Road, and the bones included human and dog remains by its side. Authorities believed it'd been there for some time as a bushfire swept the area in 2 years later, not 2 months. 2 years later.
Okay.
And apparently the body was left there during a fire 2 years previously that charred a lot of that city. Though no cause of death was able to be established, a turquoise ring and watch were both found with the remains, and the bones were identified as Scott through dental records.
Oh.
Though the strange calls to Scott's family stopped in 1984, they resumed after Scott's remains were found in August, and the killer would taunt the family.
Damn.
She's been missing for 2 years until her bodies were found charred up. Or just bones and dust left.
Yeah.
Because they believe the body was left in a bushfire that swept through the area. So she'd been dead before, and he left the body there to cover it up.
Oh my god.
And she was that burnt. They couldn't prove what her cause of death was or when it was.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I just find it so sadistic that the bloke would call the family after she died.
Yeah,
Just taunt her.
exactly. It's very
Mental.
creepy, isn't it? Do you think they had so much more creativity like back in the day? It was much easier to do. Wasn't it?
Murderers did it the right way, is that your statement?
Exactly. It was more entertaining in a way. But yeah,
I can't imagine many people being that ballsy to call people up and like he'd call newspapers, he'd call the family, he'd call her, like his bloody phone bill must have been through the roof. But the person who reported to the newspaper was him because of the detail he knew.
There's like.
But it questions how he knew it as well. So there's obviously layers to that, like how did he know that her co-worker had been bitten by a spider? Would she have told a random person that she just kidnapped her?
Yeah, that level of detail is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. I just find that so, like, fascinating.
Yeah, don't you think isn't there a level of Bundy about this a little bit?
I know what you mean.
Yeah, the
Ted Bundy was a different gravy though, weren't he?
yeah, different kind of guy, but
Ted Bundy was different gravy.
the B-Tech Bundy, I don't know, that's incredible. Yeah, how did he know? Why do they always know? It's like
How do they always know?
It's a-
'Cause there's more to the story. Every story, you only find about 70% of what happened, really.
exactly. Well, the next big story I've got, the person also knows, and I don't know how. But I don't know. That's
He must have been. He must have like been watching her. Like I know we gave her phone calls of recounting the details of her day, but like he could tell that she switched scarves.
yeah. That's
Like I've never stalked anyone. I'm never going to. Never planning to. But to stalk someone and find that and notice that detail, to know, oh, she's got a different scarf on now. Like that's obsession.
yeah, sadistic intuition, isn't it? Scary.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Mental.
Yeah, it's such a small detail, but if you open it up, that's like how would you, to know that much? Like, oh, that is creepy. That is fully creepy. I'd give that double eights, mate. That is high.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Speaking of watching people, my next story is called The Watcher. Now,
Oh God, I hate stalker stories.
Yeah.
I would have said one, but I hate them.
yeah, this is quite a lengthy story, so you'll have to bear with me, but it's definitely worth it.
To interject,
Yeah.
just before we start, stalker stories are always the worst because you hear these murder stories and you're like, that's so far-fetched, that's so crazy that the one person would do that. Stalking, it happens constantly, man.
Exactly.
Stalking is so real.
Well, we're calling
Like,
these.
especially with modern day now, like social media, stalking is so, like, it's easy. You can easily stalk someone these days compared to, like, the 80s, 90s, where our stories probably are. I don't know what year of your story out, but mine was in the 80s.
Yeah,
It's so easy to stalk people now, which is why stalking stories always like creep me out, because it's like it's so realistic to happen. It could easily happen.
So, I mean, these stories, we call them stories, but they happen. It's not fiction. This actually came about. But speaking of, this one's recently as well. This one started in 2014.
Oh God, started? What do you mean started?
Exactly. Well, let me introduce you to the Watcher. So, one night in June 2014, Derek Broadus had just finished an evening of painting at his new home in New Jersey. He went outside to check the mail. Derek and his wife Maria had closed in on a 6-bedroom house at 657 Boulevard 3 days earlier and were doing some renovations before they moved in. So there wasn't much mail except bills and a white card-shaped envelope. It was addressed in thick, chunky handwriting to the new owner, and the typed note inside began warmly. Dearest new neighbour at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighbourhood. So let's break this down because it's quite a big story. So this guy has sent a envelope to this house. For the
welcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say the word.
For the Broaduses, buying 657 Boulevard had fulfilled a dream. Maria was raised in Westfield, and the house was a few blocks from her childhood home. But as Derek kept reading the letter from his new neighbour, it took a turn.
I'm scared, man.
How did you end up here? The writer asked. Did 657 Boulevard call to you within its force? The letter went on. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as approaches the 110th birthday, I've been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of this house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. So this guy's incredible. Do you know what I mean? Lovely fellow. And he wrote another letter.
Is this real?
Yeah, this is real.
It's not like ghost story, is it? Because
mate, this happened 100%. But yeah,
it's giving me bad vibes, man.
Another letter said, "You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I have counted." The anonymous correspondent wrote before asking if there were more on the way. "Do you need to fill the house with young blood?" I requested. "It's better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family, or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names..."
Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean? Bring me your children.
Once I know your names, I will call to them and draw them to me. So Derek and Maria wrote an email to John and Andrea, this is the people who sold them 657 Boulevard, to ask if they had any idea who the Watcher was, or if he had written to them before. I asked the Woods to bring me young blood, and it looks the way they listened, so that's why he'd written. So Andrea Woods, who owned the house previously, replied in the morning. A few days before moving out, the Woodses had also received a letter from the Watcher. The note had been odd, she said, and made similar mention of the Watcher's family observing the house. But Andrea, she said, and her husband had never seen anything like it in the 23 years of living there, and they threw the letter away without thought. So they sold this couple had sold this family a house after getting this letter. That is incredible.
And they thought nothing of it.
Yeah, I didn't even tell them.
I'm more interested in if it is turn now. Why did no one else write them letters during them 23 years?
Yeah, I thought that. I think it was their idea of the house was safe under a proper couple or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And the fact they didn't disclose that information is ridiculous. You know those stories of the haunted house and they never disclosed the information?
Yeah, like going back to earlier, like American Horror Story Murder House Season 1, like that house was continuously bought, even though everyone knew people were getting murdered in there all the time, people were killing themselves.
I'm pretty
I know it's fictional, but it's like...
level of truth.
Why would you do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you do it? Why would you do it?
Also, I'm pretty sure you have to disclose information. Like, if someone's murdered in a house, I'm pretty sure you have to tell the new owners what's happened.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like within so many years of it happening, you saw people.
But these two, forget about it, mate. It's just a hoax. Anyway, Derek and Maria stopped bringing their kids to the house. They were no longer sure when or if they would move in. Several weeks later, a third letter arrived. "Where have you gone to?" the watcher wrote. 657 Boulevard is missing you. At this time, the couple were feeling incredibly depressed, and the woman was experiencing PTSD. They planned to sell the house to an architect who planned to split the house into two. They appealed to the neighbourhood planning board, who unanimously rejected the proposal, but that same year they accepted another proposal to split a property into just two, and that house was around the corner. So at this point, it was like widely covered in the media, and the neighbours did not like this family for some reason because of how much exposure had been brought to the
neighbourhood.
Yeah, and this neighbourhood was on those websites you can check to see how much crime's in your area.
Yeah, it was quite low.
Well, they were I think it was 10th best in the country.
Oh, mad!
And this,
especially in America, that's mad.
So, yeah, which is funny. They went from I think it was £330,000 house to a £770,000 house to 1.3 million. This new 1.3 million house they did in 3 years, which is unheard of. So yeah, and apparently the debt was building up after the mortgages and stuff. And they thought, and I'm pretty sure Eric was a writer, and he was not successful, and he thought this would be a clever way to bring in income. Yeah, so the suspects were a man whose girlfriend stopped at the house suspiciously when the police were surveying, and they tracked her to a town close by. The boyfriend was into really dark video games, and his alias on the video game was The Watcher.
The Watcher.
Yeah.
So that coming, didn't we?
Exactly, and he never turned up to his interviews, but the police had no evidence to take it further, apart from that. I don't know, that's
mad.
Quite a link, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the other suspect was a man who went by the name of Michael Langford. He lived in the house next door. Had been in the same area since in the 60s, which means when the watcher mentioned earlier that he'd been watching the house for like decades.
What was the name?
Michael Langford.
Langford?
Yeah.
That's mad.
And so that comes in with the watching the house for decades. And he was also known to spook his new neighbours. So what he would do when a new neighbour would come is walk into their yard or garden and just stare at them in the window. He was known to do this. And he was denied knowing anything. And it wasn't brought any further.
No one knows to this day who it is.
No. And it only stopped, I think it was 2018, sorry. They've had no letters since 2018. But yeah.
Jesus, that's creepy, man.
It's the anonymous thing that would get me, like not knowing the fact he's always watching, and it's in the name, but he would always know. So why do they always know? I don't get it.
Yeah, still, it's the fact that they always know, man.
This guy seems pretty trained though. The fact no one could find him.
He's that bloke said, it passed down for generations. They probably have tricks of the trade to do.
Yeah, it's kind of passed down, wasn't it, by the sounds of it?
Yeah, that's weird.
Or it's someone bullshitting. Because the fact, I don't know, that he never did anything. No bottle. Do you know what I mean?
No bottle.
So luckily...
All talk, no walk.
Exactly, the Watcher. You're the nothing. But yeah, the fact... He always knew. He must have been at the right place at the right time. It must have been one of the suspects. Could they have actually made all this up and cleared the debt?
Yeah. I don't know.
I think they should have interrogated Michael Langford and...
Do you blame the police not doing enough? But there's no evidence to suggest it was them. Well, except for people's hearsays and the online name that you can't say is not a... It's not generic, but you can't just accuse someone who has an online name of being the person terrorism because it's just an online name.
Yeah, well, apparently the police didn't take it any further with Michael Langford because his neighbours vouched for him. And I'm thinking, what, the neighbours that have boyfriends who watch really dark video games and are called The Watcher? Like, I don't get the... It's very... I don't know. The whole thing's very cryptic, to say the least. But no.
I'm more Why watch the house as well? I want to know. Why watch it? Why?
He seems like
Why
he
that
has,
house, man?
yeah, an obsession and love for a house that he just watched. Like, where's the link? The Watcher doesn't give us any information. Why?
Yeah, that's what I mean. The only thing I want to know is why. Like, yeah, okay, be a weird Donny, watch the house, but why?
What did you think about that one then? For a scale rating, where does that rank?
7, because they don't do nothing.
Yeah, it's all very.
They don't do nothing. All talk, man.
It's all talk. Not that we wanted him to do anything. Although it would have made for a better podcast.
Nah, yeah, but burn the car, do something.
Exactly. Yeah, let's get some scarves out.
All he did was rewrite letters with best handwriting. That's all he's done.
In fact, Derek took inspiration. He should be thanking him, if anything.
Yeah, disgrace. Yeah, because he was a writer himself.
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
Yeah, there is a final story I thought about, and this is, again, apparently true, if you're up for it.
Entice me.
So there was this, I don't get too I'm religious, but there was this guy, you know, the afterlife.
The concept?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So you know how there's a concept of, you know how people believe that you move on, you could be an animal the next life or you're someone else in the next life?
Yeah.
You're always progressing kind of thing. Well, there was this documentary of this boy. This boy who told his parents that he knew where he'd been murdered previously. So what happened was he took the couple, his mum and dad, on an aeroplane, and they went across to another country, and he told them where he'd got murdered. And this kid's young, like he shouldn't really be talking the way he is.
Yeah.
And they found out that someone actually did get murdered there with an axe to the back of the head. And
that's weird.
And there's no possible way that this boy could have known.
I want to know why the parents were like, yeah, right then, go, show me.
Do you know what I mean? That's the first thing I'm telling my child to relax a bit, kind of thing.
Yeah, imagine if you're having kids and you pick up to you. I died underneath the Eiffel Tower in France. Take me, I'll show you.
I died in Disneyland, supposedly. Let's go.
Yeah, I died in Disneyland on the Star Wars ride. I'll show you. Take me.
I swear I died in Go Kids Go. Let's go. Do you know what I mean?
Oh God, Go Kids Go.
But anyway, yeah, he got it bang on, and they found evidence that they didn't know about. They didn't even know someone was murdered there.
I always find it interesting afterlife concepts, like, because obviously each religion has its own concept.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I have my own belief for what happens in the afterlife. If there is an afterlife for now, I have my own belief for that. But I remember listening to Logic's album, and I don't know if that was his take, but that his take on afterlife in that album was so interesting. And it was like, I assume he's a religious man. It was like, you're everyone. And when you die, you're the next person. Oh yeah,
that was the concept of the album, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's you living life through everyone's shoes to ultimately see how people feel and how, like, another person is judged against that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a very interesting concept of what afterlife is. It's about understanding in his ideas.
Yeah, we'll have to get into it. I'm not sure it's what I believe, but do my research and have a look.
I know what I believe, but I don't know what other people believe, so I'll share my belief.
Suppose as long as everyone's respectful.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about. Being respectful and moral.
Exactly.
Do you believe or don't believe or believe different?
Where would you put that on the scale then? Because that freaks me out to the extreme.
Solid 8. How old was the kid, do you remember? Like, are we talking pre-teen and all?
Oh yeah, he was below 9. And you shouldn't really have that kind of knowledge about... no one should. How do you know about a murder that wasn't even on the news, it wasn't known about?
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Incredible. Anyway, I think I'm going to end it there. George, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it was great.
I'll leave all your links and stuff down below.
Cheers.
Yeah, make sure you check out the previous episode of the Hourglass Podcast. Thanks for listening.